If we look at the data stewardship, it includes plenty of different aspects. We could start with saving somewhere our research data, use them also to explain what are our methods. Maybe in some cases we have to add code for processing this data. We have to add descriptions, the very popular term metadata, and now the more complex concept of paradata. There is documentation, and we arrive probably at some publications which explain what was our research. This is very important as something which enables collaboration and reuse and impact. I will talk a little bit later about all these aspects. But the importance here is that having all these different components well managed means that our research can be traced, it is more trustworthy, it could be reused, it's better connected, and hopefully it creates more impact. And it's very important that our research actually deserves to be found, understood, trusted, and reused. I can make a very bold statement that many people in this room worked on different projects, and what is very common is that when the project finishes, one cannot even find the website of this project. It's not supported any longer, not speaking about these other outcomes. And as many of you know, there is a big push to collect what projects produce, especially within the European Union context. If you look at the Bulgarian picture, so this is exactly the same illustration, the one area which stands out is publications. So if you look at which aspects are well collected and documented, in our case, these are mostly publications. We all know in this room that there is the Bulgarian portal for open science, which collects the open access publications. Various universities have repositories, not all of them, but some. So we are not at the helm of the best practice, but this is the area which is most visible. Publications, as again you know very well, in the last years tend to be linked to data. So we don't want only to see a text stating things, but we want to also be able to check the data set and to see if we can arrive to the same conclusions as the authors, or maybe reuse these data sets in a different study. So if we look at the situation in Bulgaria, the most visible part are the publications, but not that much anything which is on the left from the bubble with publications. We could say that our practice is fragmented, data and code are not routinely shared, the quality of metadata and documentation varies across various institutions. For the first time, the National Science Fund made an attempt to start collecting data management plans for all the projects which are supported by this fund. And as you know, there is an ongoing effort to collect institutional data management plans, which is still something which many institutions are trying to figure out. Open science awareness is increasing, and here the collaboration which organizes also this training has a big role. And I hope personally that the next step we will see developing is that data stewardship can also grow and connect the various bits and pieces which are still not very well configured. In the last 3 days, the pilot program for open science hosted a doctoral school. And during this doctoral school, we used a tool which was created at an earlier project called Orbit, which was a tool for self-assessing the skills the various participants in this event have in different areas of open science. If you look at the management of research data, which is at about 1 o'clock on the diagram, managing research data is among the areas which show more feeling that we know how to do it compared to some other areas. For example, the area of managing intellectual property rights is not showing such a big confidence. However, again, this self-assessment tool is asking the people who are self-assessing their skills what data they actually work with and what are their skills to handle this data. And here we have the collection, processing, analysis, storage, sharing, and reuse. This is a sort of a heat diagram where the darker the color is. This means that more people answer that they feel that they have these skills. And what we could use, what we could see in this diagram is that actually the areas of sharing and reuse are, I would say, tabula rasa. If people have skills that know how to collect public data or quantitative data or qualitative data, and they have skills to store this data, in these two columns, actually we see that almost practically no one said that they have skills, which supports the need for such training events as this one. So, if we have to summarize, first of all, in the area of data repositories, we don't have any trusted data repositories. Here in the room, we have multiple representatives of different research infrastructures which collect plenty of data. And having no trusted data repositories is, I would say, a bit of a paradox, because we could expect that all these subject domain collections of data would move in the direction of becoming trusted data repositories. So again, I think that a continuation of this program probably will seek what are the mechanisms to support those of you who are at the stage, I have a great collection of data, to arrive to another level, which is now I don't only have the great data, but I also have a trusted repository which allows not only me and the members of my team to use this data, but actually offers a bigger visibility and use of the data. Our current repositories are mostly publication-oriented. Some are hybrid, but not really specializing on data services. Research data repositories, as I mentioned, are quite uneven and I would say rudimentary. There is a potential, but we need to move in this direction of offering more well-structured, trusted repositories. A great move for the country is that it now has an EOSC node under preparation. This is a project which is being implemented by the National Documentation Center. The role of data stewards in Bulgaria is still not established, although the Ministry of Education is monitoring this area and is really willing to find the ways to support the introduction of data stewards as an official role around data repositories. The data management practices, the DMP processes are, we could say, well covered in a limited number of institutions. In a way, the big push here comes from the European Commission projects, which require data management plans. But to what extent this is not seen as an administrative burden and as really a good chance to look into what our data are, what is important to keep, that's a big question. We also mentioned that the strongest layer in Bulgaria is publications, and hopefully the next step will be having reusable data and also code, metadata, paradata, and documentation all in a better order. So I tried also to summarize where we could see the stages of maturity of different sort of data collections for the time being. I think in this room we have lots of collections which probably are on layer 1, which is we have collected data, they reside somewhere, we know where they are, they're stored locally or on some cloud. The thing is that in most cases, the knowledge about these collections stays with the individuals who are involved in handling these collections of data. And then on the next level, we could see that this is not only a collection of data, but a managed collection of data where data are organized. There are some structures, metadata, and the collection is being backed up. And there are not only the researchers or the data collectors who know what the data are, but also maybe other roles of people who take care of these collections. We can imagine that on the next level, we arrive to a collection which is not only collected and managed, but also shared, where data are visible, they can be discovered by other groups of researchers, there are clearer access conditions, and the topic of rights and access is something which Anna Lazarova will cover in the afternoon. I'm not going to discuss these aspects now, but it's an important consideration also to figure out who has the right to use our data and for what purposes. If we arrive to this level, the next step is to offer a collection of data which is also reusable. In this case, data are described in a way which supports reuse. Here, the big challenge is not only to have the data, but also to have a very pragmatic explanation of the context, which allows other researchers to do something which is good research practice based on our collected data. So here we arrive to a level where licenses, identifiers, and versioning and provenance, where this data came from, become really essential. And probably the aspiration is to get into a level of trusted repositories, where the data are proactively taken care of. There are stewards, there is a clear governance, there is preservation of the data. So I again really would like to thank our colleague who mentioned the word risk here, because it's not only about collecting data, but making sure that they will continue to exist for a reasonable amount of time. So it's quite complex. I don't know if Magdalena would agree with these sort of stages of development. Maybe all of you who handle data collections can ask yourself at what stage you currently are. And also, does it make sense to move to another stage? Because I had conversations, I really like talking to researchers, and I have anecdotal stories from Bulgaria where somebody needs to do research which requires data. They know that somebody collects this data. If they somehow manage to get through personal contacts to this data, they're lucky. Otherwise, we don't have the mechanisms how to do this if it's not a matter of really good personal relationship between members of different teams. And now, after talking a little bit about the Bulgarian situation and the various stages of the data repositories, I wanted to look at a couple of historical examples which in a way give some inspiration in this direction, why data, their visibility and the trust in them are really important. So we go quite back in time. I work in Scotland, and this is a gentleman who was born in Scotland, James Lind. He served in the Royal Navy of the British Empire, and maybe some of you know better than I do, because this is not my domain, but he was one of those people who did what we could call today one of the first controlled clinical studies. One big issue in the Royal Navy was that a very high number of seamen suffered from scurvy. Scurvy е скорбут на български. So he took the ill seamen, a sizable group, split them into 6 groups and treated them with different different treatments, which meant that he changed what they eat, and in some cases the groups were having herbs like gin and ginger. In other groups they had lemons and oranges because there was some observation that people who eat lemons and oranges improve. Some were taking cider vinegar, so probably you wouldn't like to be in this group. And in the end, he concluded that the group which had lemons and oranges recovered quicker than all of the other groups. So this was the middle of the 18th century. What is interesting is that although he had evidence, his study was well implemented, this was not something which went immediately into the practice of the Royal Navy. And another interesting thing is that actually he didn't have an explanation why lemons and oranges were the best in the various treatments. Vitamin C was discovered in the 20th century, so this would come later. What is interesting in this case, he actually published. So from our situation in Bulgaria, we now see that we have lots of publications which are visible, which is great. So James Lind also had a visible publication. This publication was also translated, at least in French, maybe also in other languages. The need was really there. So I find these numbers really quite horrible because out of 184,000 sailors in 7 years of the when statistics, in a way, data were collected, you can see that a very, very high number, 133,000, perished from illnesses, and scurvy was the biggest reason for this. So we have a discovery, it's documented, we have a publication, there is data, well, not in a repository in that time, but he had all the data. The Royal Navy arrived to the massive practice to supply seamen with citrus fruits 50 years later, although the need was really there. So this could have been a great impact from our point of view if somebody decided to apply it earlier. Today scurvy is generally eradicated, but in countries like Afghanistan you can still actually find it. I also wanted to add a few terms here with explanations also in Bulgarian, because in some cases the translations of English terms are tricky, but when we speak about data and their use, in the future we could have several scenarios. One is repeatability, when the same researcher is basically repeating their experiment, and this helps to confirm that the results are valid. Another variation here is reproducibility, when the same data are used by a different researcher. Again, this is done with the idea to confirm whether the research results are trustworthy. We also can have replicability, where another researcher uses maybe this data or new data are added. So here the idea is that we are checking if the results are consistent, and with new data we receive something which is similar. Another important term here is robustness, which would require basically describe the situation that the results are consistent in different conditions. And the fact that something creates an impact doesn't necessarily mean that this study is reproducible. And we have some tough questions here. So this is an example with which probably many of you are familiar. This is not as old as the one we looked before, but in 1998, Andrew Wakefield published an article which suggested a link between the vaccine for measles, mumps, and rubella and autism. So he concluded that there is a link. This had a huge social impact and created a lot of mistrust in vaccines in general. However, the problem was that nobody could confirm this study. People tried to do the same type of study, collect new data, but this was not a reproducible result. And then what followed next is that the article got retracted, and the public impact, however, remains, and we saw it also in COVID times when the mistrust in vaccines was extremely high. So this, in a way, has its roots. So what is interesting is that nobody could repeat and confirm these results. And actually, I'm not saying that they are not true. The fact which remains and the worry of the society is that a link was established by one researcher, but it couldn't be confirmed by anyone else after that. So I really wanted to give some examples which show how our data really matter, and if you lose them and other people cannot repeat our studies and check results, that's actually not really very good. We have representatives of the medical university here, one of the institutions which is a member of QARA, the Coalition for Advanced Research Assessment, and QARA makes a very clear statement which shows that the assessment of research is connected to the quality and the impact of research. Just wanted to remind this, that what we do and having also the ability to collect and use the data in the future actually is only one segment of our bigger research life cycle up to the activities around research assessment. So nobody here says anything about data, but if we don't have the data, respectively the quality, the impact of research, this would impact also the assessment on different levels. In the UK, impact is a big part of the research assessment, and actually in my university there I'm the lead for research impact in a computer science department of about 100 people, and there is a definition that impact is something which can be described as the effect on change or benefit to the economy, society, culture, public policy, services. In many cases, when we discuss research impact, the first idea many researchers have is to see if their papers are cited by other people. That's not enough. Actually, impact is not about your visibility as a researcher. It's about how the research you're doing brings some change into the world. And it matters for the visibility of research, can attract more funding, and also leads to personal satisfaction, because if you know that you resolved something which means that lives of other people are really impacted positively, that's probably the best thing we could do in our profession. Impact has two important dimensions: what is its reach and what is its significance. So the reach basically shows, do we do something which influences the staff in one hospital, all the citizens in the city of Sofia, or the whole Balkan Peninsula, or the whole world. And the significance shows actually what is the nature of the change. And again, this can be supported by data. So we have different types of impact listed here, who can be affected. And if we create the conditions for reuse, which allows other researchers to get on the impact ladder, this actually means that we also have an impact which spreads through the academic community as well. So what I wanted to do now is very briefly, in a couple of minutes, to reflect think about the research topic you are working on. And can you say what is its scope and significance? So, for example, I work on descriptions of data sets in the cultural heritage domain, something which looks quite specific. What is the scope? This actually can impact the practice of all libraries, archives, museums, not only in Bulgaria, but worldwide. So depending on how successful I am, I could have a scope which covers one institution or actually grows into a bigger dimension. And it's very clear which type of institutions I'm targeting. These are libraries, museums, archives. So in my case, I know what is my research topic, and what is its scope and significance. If you sort of answer yourself this question, I'll give you half a minute to think. I have few further questions for you. These are not questions I'm inviting you to share at the moment. It's just to reflect a little bit. So you have a half a minute of thinking time of a research topic and its scope and significance. Sometimes it's tricky if we haven't thought in this way about what we do. And now I will go to the next set of questions. Imagine that your research is done. What happens tomorrow? What will remain visible? Would this be publications? Would this be some data sets, software, methodologies, where these artifacts are going to reside? So in the doctoral school, one of the big issues when research data are discussed is where exactly, if you want to deposit a research data set, where exactly we are going to do this. Well, we don't have the trusted repositories. Of course, we can look for subject repositories which are internationally visible, or for the general one, Zenodo. Is this a good enough solution for the visibility of our data in the future? Would Zenodo be able to preserve this data for the future? So these are questions which it's good to think a little bit about. How will this data be discoverable? So again, depending on where they reside, if they reside on my laptop and I haven't shared anywhere, when I move to my next project, I probably will forget that I have this data set, or where it is, or what is exactly in it. But if it is probably properly documented and deposited, there is a bigger chance that it can be used in the future. Will it be possible to repeat my study? One of these important questions. If Andrew Wakefield was thinking about repeatability, maybe he would have constructed his study in a different way. I don't know, I'm speculating here, but we saw this example that not being able to offer a study which is repeatable can be a big issue. Will it be possible to reuse the results in the future? Can somebody take out my data sets and do something different with them? What do we need to do to increase the chances for reuse? So if I am really proud with the results of my work, I want to make sure that I'm leaving a legacy behind. What exactly do I need to do? And here we close the whole circle and we come back to this topic of today, research data management, which will be presented in a big depth by Magdalena in the next hours. I just wanted to give a little bit of food for thought and remind that the question why we do this actually is very important. Without it, we would always see data management as yet another administrative burden. Thank you for your attention.